What's up, guys? Got a pretty cool fly for you. We call it the Pinecone mouse. One of my productive bugs for top water. It's got some awesome little legs kicking, and that fettuccine foam really makes some bubbly, gurgly pops when you strip these guys. And check it out. You're gonna have to watch this tutorial and see how we make it.
That's a big brown
All right, we got a 2/0 streamer stripper in the vise. I'm gonna throw down some 200 denier nano silk. Get a nice base of whatever glue you like to use. Help that thing stay in place. Nice thread base going. We'll start with some super suede chenille for some tailing material. Lock that guy down past the bend. And we'll tie in some cross-cut rabbit. Start that right at the tail. We'll do about 3 to 4 wraps of that. Just enough to get up the bend of the shank again. Tie that guy off. Once we get that little butt section made, we're gonna tie in a little strip of belly. We're going to use some white zonker. Tie that in on the hook on the point side of the shank here. And we're going to tie that back and let that hang out for just a minute while we build some legs. These legs are a little excessive, but for a mouse with some extra detail, this is kind of how I like to do them. So I'll take 3 strands of some loco legs still attached together. And what I like to do is tie a overhand knot about 1/2 inch from the end of the legs and cinch those down. I like to do that on both sides. And that's going to be our ankle, or our little joint for our legs. And we're gonna, a little bit easier to have a little bit longer hands, we're gonna take these legs and we're gonna stretch them apart. And we're gonna pull all 3 fibers separate, and then we're just gonna start braiding these legs by just passing the left over the right, the left over the right. And we're gonna do this for about 3/4 of the leg. You don't have to go all the way, but the more dexterity you have, the better. Once you get to a point where your legs are pretty wound up, nice long braids, you just pinch it right in the middle. Line up the 2 little ankles, and then we're gonna measure those guys back to where they go just about the same length as the rabbit strip. And we'll do 3 soft wraps so we can slide those legs to either side. And then we'll crank those down so they don't go anywhere. Trim off our little front bump. The next step is going to be some more cross-cut rabbit. We're going to tie this guy in right on top. And then we're going to add, tied that one in backwards. We'll flip that over. I want to make sure that hair is going up. Alright, then we'll tie in some medium crystal hackle. I like doing a little bit of synthetic to help build some bulk. Doesn't have to be super bulky, but I like the synthetic for its added stiffness, and then you have your natural flowing materials with the zonker to help keep it look nice and alive. Then what we're going to do is I like to invert this vise. Then we're going to take that crystal hackle and that zonker. We're going to kind of pair them up together. We're going to do one wrap to get started with, right on that tie-in point. And then we're just going to palmer this forward and do a little bit of overlapping with that crystal hackle. And like I said, it's not really enough to really change the color or action of this fly. It just adds a little bit of bulk. And once we leave yourself some room for some head space, I'm going to tie that off. Go back just a little ways on that zonker, and we'll flip it over. This is where I like to lick my fingers a little bit, splay that belly fibers to the side, and then just like a sparkle minnow, we're gonna lay that strip of white rabbit right along the belly. I'm gonna tie that guy in. With 3 or 4 wraps on top, and then 3 or 4 wraps in front. Trim those off. And this is where I like to just dab a little bit of super glue here, not a ton, but just a little bit to just help bind that tie-in point down, because we're going to be adding some more materials here. So tie that thread back a little bit onto that zonker. Helps make you a little bit more durable. And then next step, again, it could be a little excessive, but I like the way that these little arms or little outriggers kind of help this fly keel and ride right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 strands of fettuccine foam with blush. I'm going to take these guys, I'm going to pinch some 70 denier thread in with those 3 pieces of foam. And I'm going to do 3 wraps over themselves, and then I'm going to pinch and cinch. And I'm going to do 3 more wraps. And what that does is it just gives me a nice little joint or a little wrist for our arms. We'll do some whip finishes with our hands over that. Tie that down. Trim that thread back. Then we're going to do the same thing on the other side of these strands. And pinch that thread, do 2 or 3 soft wraps, pinch and cinch, and then do 2 or 3 more wraps. And then we'll lengthen that thread out, and then just do a hand whip finish. And let that thread cinch tight. Trim off your excess. Now you've got these three little fingers sticking out. We're going to line up the little joints together, and we're going to pinch them. We're going to trim all of those little fingers at the same time, so that way they're all the same length. And then we're going to take these guys, and I like to do it kind of at the same time. So I like to just slide them on either side of the hook shank, right to where the little arms go, or right in between the hook point and the barb. Feel like that's a good length, and we're just going to do 3 or 4 soft wraps. Get that foam pinched to either side. Make sure it stays in place, and then we're just going to cinch that down. Do some more securing wraps. Then we'll remove the loop in front. I'm going to save those little strands of foam for later. We're going to use those for some ears at the end. And so now, bind down those little butt ends. Do one more little dab of super glue here. Not a ton, just enough to secure those thread wraps from moving or sliding. Then you're going to end your thread right in front of all that material. We're going to build a nice bulky head with some foam. So what I like to do is I like to take some fettuccine foam, take 4 strands of 3 colors. I like tan, root beer, and gray. You're going to line up all the tips on one end as best you can, and you'll cut it in half. Then you'll cut it in half again, just so you'll get nice quarter, you'll quarter those full strands of fettuccine foam. And then I've got a little homemade, little cylinder guy that a little bit larger than most hair stackers, but I like to throw my fettuccine in there, help keep it aligned. So holds on to that stuff for me while I work with the white fettuccine next. So I'm going to grab 4 strands of white fettuccine. This is going to match the belly. I'm going to trim them in half, cut them in quarters, and then I'm going to stack those guys. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to use my little handmade stacker here. I'm going to hold my hair or my fettuccine on the bottom half, and I'm going to slide my foam in on top so it gives me that nice white half and half look. Then I'm going to transfer my hands to where I have the white on the belly side. And then what I like to do is I like to rotate my vise 90 degrees because I like my thread hanging off the side of the vise, so when I apply my foam, that it splits this belly hair, it goes out the side of the white instead of coming right out the middle. It helps with just making a nice even belly or transition. So what I like to do is I like to fold half that white foam back, and I'll slide it over the mouse, and then I'll transfer my hands, and this whole time I'm pinching on that foam, not super tight, but pretty tight. So this is where the 200 denier gel spun comes in handy, is I like to do 1 full wrap, and then instead of pulling straight down, what I do is I'll pull straight back as I pinch. And what that does is that allows that hair or that fettuccine foam to all stay in place. And as I do this, I'm pinching super hard, compressing that foam as I cinch that thread to help bind that stuff down. Then while you still have it compressed, I'm going to do 2 more wraps right in the same channel, so that way that's a nice, really secure tie-in point. And then now I'll rotate my vise back to the normal orientation, kind of take a look and make sure I got all my foam looking and pointing the right way. And so now what I like to do is I like to pull some foam back and zigzag my thread forward, and I'm going to do 1 wrap, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pinch and cinch that foam so that way it helps really secure it down. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pull some more foam back. I'm going to zigzag it through, pull some more foam back, zigzag it through, and then I'm going to pinch and cinch 1 last time here, and that's going to secure more foam forward. And then we're going to pull all that foam back, and we're going to do some really tight wraps right behind the eye. And once you get to that point, you can do a hand whip finish or use a tool. I think your hand a little bit more articulated, so you can move that thing around and really maneuver that thread where it needs to go. Cut that guy off. So now comes the I'd say the most tedious part is going to be trimming your foam. And the way I like to do it is I'll take my hook out of the vise and I'll hold it upside down, and so that way I can get a good look at that eye, because I want to cut real flat against that eye. So as I look at this guy, I'm going to cut as best as I can. Nice little chops. You don't have to cut it all at once. And you can see I get one nice smooth cut going down on my first go. And then after that, you're going to kind of just keep angling your scissors to that same bottom profile of nice and flat. And once you get that nice flat belly created, then I like to put the hook back in the vise. And then this is where you can start using the rotary. And you can rotate. I like starting on the front side of the hook there, so that way I can see the angle that I'm trying to achieve. And we're just going to rotate, a little trimming, and a little rotating at the same time. You got some little goobers up there in the front by the eye. And then after all that compressing and stuff we did earlier with that foam, I like to kind of let these guys sit and rest for a little while. And that allows that foam to expand back out and fill in the head. So there's not really an exact science to how to trim this stuff, because the foam will still move towards the end after you trim and make room for more expansion in some spots. But that there looks pretty good to me. So then what we'll do now, we'll do a little bit more trimming on the back end. We'll trim our tail. We'll trim our little feet. Those guys just behind the ankle. And then for the last little bit of detail, I'm sure this would fish fine just the way it is. We're going to put on some ears and some eyes. Not that it really makes it fish any better, but the ears, what's nice about it is it helps let you see if that fly is floating upside right, if you're doing any daytime mousing. And then the eyes, they're just cute, little wow factors. So what we're going to do is that same technique as we did with the feet. I'm going to take a little loop of foam. I'm going to trim the ends even. I'm going to take that thread. I'm going to do 2 soft wraps. I'm going to do a pinch and cinch. Do 2 more wraps. And then I'm going to do a little hand whip finish on these guys. Cut that thread off. Okay, now I'm going to make the same loop. So what I like to do is I like to hold them next to each other, just so that way I get the same proportion of ears, hopefully. Do 2 soft wraps, pinch and cinch. Do some hand whip finishing. Get rid of that thread. And then now what I like to do, hold those little ears together, trim those down as close as they can get, and then I'll take a pair of scissors or a bodkin, and what I like to do is I kind of like to draw a line in the foam first, just so I can kind of see where's going to be a good even spot. So I like to spread that foam apart, get a good vision on, I can see right where I like wanted that to go. We'll pull some of the handy dandy glue out. Spread that foam. Dab a little super glue in there. And then we'll apply our little ears. Oh. Need a little more super glue in that corner. Nice, cute little ears on top. Like I said, that's just kind of a good indicator for if your fly's riding upright or if it's upside down. And then we'll add some eyes to this. Super easy way to do these eyes. I just take some of these epoxy eyes, and what I'll do is take the one strand and I'll kind of seesaw or saw those eyes into the foam so you guys can kind of see, you can kind of manipulate where those go just in the foam like so. Then once you kind of get a good idea of where you like them, then I'll push them up just a ways. And then we'll take some glue again and put some right on the base of those eyes. And we'll slide them on down right where we want them. And then we'll take our little whiskies, get rid of those little mouse whiskers. Look cute, but we don't need them. And there you go. There's the Pinecone mouse, or as our friend Henry likes to call it, the not in the soup mouse. So very cute, fishes really well. It's been to Canada, caught some brook trout and some pike up there in the Great North. I've been fishing it for bass here, Ryrie, American Falls, anywhere there's warm water species, they eat these guys, and then your notorious brownie in the night. So tie them up, fish them, let me know how you do.